Roger, I'm an alcoholic. October 11th, 1978 is my sobriety date.
Hey, Roger.
Here's the deal. I've been thinking about this, and we got a lot of new people, and we got some people that have been around a little while. So we got some people that have been around a long time. So for some of the long timers, it's going to be a review tune-up, and for some of the new people, it's going to be what? So, spiritual experience versus spiritual awakening. There isn't, by AA's definition, there's no difference. I want to look at a couple of things and talk about it through the lens of the experience. First off, I have no idea what a spiritual experience is, what it's supposed to be. When I'm new, I look at this and I go, I don't think so. Because I don't think it's not within my consciousness yet, the God idea, a higher power idea, let alone having a spiritual experience. I don't know what that is, right? And they tell us that really early in the text, don't they? They tell us on page, what is it, 26, 25, 26, yeah. They tell us, and there's a solution on page 25. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of the shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. Almost none of us like the process. None of us like the steps. So that tells me something important. I don't have to like this to do it. I just have to do it. Okay, fine. And then they say things like, but they're talking from their experiences. But we saw that it really worked in others. I turn to the first person and a question, have I seen this work in another person's life? The answer is yes. Okay, good. So I know it works because I've seen the example. And it has to be an example that has depth and weight. So example for Bill, it was Ebby. Is everyone familiar with that story? I can't see everyone. We got 3 pages up. So in Bill's story, Ebby is the example that he can't refute because he drank and ran with Ebby. And it tells us very clearly that until we have the experience of identification, little, if any, progress will be made. So it's really critical that I find someone that I can identify with. How am I going to do that if I'm not going to meetings? That's where you find them. You don't see them at the 7-Eleven walking around. You go to the meeting, you go to the appropriate fellowship for you. You attend the meeting, you listen, and you see and feel and hear what people are saying. And there'll be a man or there'll be a woman that you listen and you go, ah, I get that. I can hear her. I can hear him when he talks. That's what I'm looking for, right? And he's been where I am, or she's been where I am, and they're not there anymore. So, okay, if that's the case, there's nothing left for me but to pick up a simple kit of spiritual tools laid at my feet. So there's an implication there. You identify with me, we're talking, and I lay this out in a thumbnail, Reader's Digest way of what I found here and how these steps work for me. And then you say, I'll have some of that. That's you picking up the kit. And now it's incumbent upon me to show you how to use the tools. It's not nice, pick up the kit, see you later, kid, have a nice life. No, because no one knows how to do this stuff. And we look at this, we look at the text, we look at the steps, we look at all this stuff, and we cop an idea and an attitude about it that's usually wrong. It's usually rife with misunderstanding. So, then they promise this experience of a 4th dimension. And then they go into the great fact. And the great fact is what? That we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences. And then they take us, there's an asterisk there, and they take us back to the appendix, Appendix II, spiritual experience. My book is on page 569. Now, they're going to tell me what their experience is with this idea, okay? So I don't have to wonder anymore, what do you mean by spiritual experience or awakening? They're going to tell me, okay? So here we go. Oh, by the way, some of you know this, and some of the new people might not know this. This came into being because when they printed the first edition, the only example, they had the stories in the back and Bill's example in the front. and everyone thought they were supposed to have Bill's experience. And the room wasn't filling up with light, and people were not having that overpowering, overwhelming experience of the presence of their creator like Bill had, and they thought they were doing something wrong. So they added this appendix for people like that, like me. The term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. So there's three: spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, personality change. Yet it's true of our first printing that many readers got the impression, gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. 5 examples. First 2 chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, there's 6, followed at once by a vast change, there's 7, in feeling and outlook. I need to be swept off my feet. It's a misconception. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformations, there's another one, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety. This is taken from Varieties of Religious Experience. Anyone read that book? Show of hands. Varieties of Religious Experience. That is the book that Bill had under his arm when he showed up at Towns Hospital the last time with 3 bottles of beer and a book under his arm. That was the book. It's not a light read, but helpful nonetheless. The educational variety, now my ears crop up. Why? Because they develop slowly over a period of time. So you may have a sudden, impactful experience, or you might have a slowly evolving one. Okay, I got that. I'm good with that. That's me. I'm the educational variety. I'm the trial and error guy. Everything you told me to do, I had to test. I take nothing at face value, nothing. So I'm having this experience. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he or she is themselves. Not my case. I had no friends. There was no one to observe me. So he finally, or she, finally realizes they've undergone a profound alteration. There's another one. In their reaction to life, not to drinking, to life. Much bigger deal than drinking. That such a change could hardly be brought about by themselves alone. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find they've tapped an unsuspected inner resource, okay? So they just gave us, what, 12 examples? Experience, awakening, personality change, religious experience, sudden spectacular upheavals, God consciousness, vast change, transformation, educational variety, profound alteration. All those things for AA mean the same thing. That's what they mean by the spiritual awakening or experience, which is what? It's a shift in my personality. So now the question is, instead of, I wonder if I'm doing this right, I wonder if I'm going to get this, I wonder if I'm ever going to get this, I don't see God anywhere. Instead of that, all I have to do is look at myself, hopefully with steps 10 and 11, and I'll be able to see my progress. I'll be able to see I have a couple good days in a row. That's nice. Then I have a couple bad ones. Then I have a few good ones. Then I have a bad one. Then I have a good week. Then I have a bad week. Then I have 2 good weeks and 1 bad day. You know what I'm saying? And I can't know that. I can't gather that data unless I'm examining my thinking and my actions. That's 10 and 11. And what I find in the examination, I refer to the power. So I know guys that have had Jesus Christ experiences, sudden, spectacular ones. Most of them are in the minority. Most people have the educational variety to varying degrees. So that was my experience and remains my experience. So now, if you go back to the spiritual experience thing, they talk about what this experience produced in them, and it's a great fact. And the great fact is this: nothing less but deep and effective spiritual experiences. Those experiences have revolutionized my whole attitude. That's my approach, my whole approach towards life, towards our fellows, towards God's universe. Central fact of our lives today, the people that have done this, are doing this, is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered in our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. Male pronoun, because they had the King James Version of the Bible, and it was one of the references. So God in their context is always a male. Doesn't have to be for you and I. They told us in Bill's store we can choose our own concept. So it could be genderless, it could be have multiple genders, it could have a physical form, it could have no form at all, it could be energetic, it could be whatever you're willing to grow towards, provided the end result is constructive, right? So you notice the absence of drinking there? They're just talking about their relationship with the Creator. They're not saying, oh, and I'm not drinking, by the way. They're saying, when I establish that conscious contact, and it'll be fleeting in the beginning, but when I have moments and times and periods of that conscious contact, I'm on a different basis. Things that used to bother me don't bother me. Everything runs off my back like a duck in water. It's just amazing. I'm running through the day and there's no friction. There's no resistance. There's no problem. There's nothing. It's just, we're all good to go. So here's the caveat. If you're seriously alcoholic, as we were, we believe there's no middle of the road solution. We, Alcoholics Anonymous. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible, and we passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid. So you got two choices in AA land. You got two choices. One, to go on drinking, doing your drugs to the bitter end, till you die. The other, accept spiritual help. That'll be help that lifts you. That'll be help that inspires you. That'll be help that slowly, over time, transforms who you be in the world. Because all the steps, all this is a consciousness exercise. It's not a drinking exercise. We get the drinking off the table. Everyone's not drinking. That's fine. Now I got to figure out how to live. That's the game. How do I live? How do I live? Okay. So now there's a key here for me, because when I believed, when I came in, I was so cynical, I was so closed-minded, I was so oppositional that I couldn't hear any of this stuff. Over time, that got worn down. But I would read, when I was new, I would read that thing, Bill's description of his experience on page 14. Ebby lays the thing out for him after a day of drinking and discussion, and he has an aha, and the aha is this. This is really a simple idea, but it's not easy. Price has to be paid, and it meant the destruction of selfish self-centeredness. This is an aha he has while he's drinking. How long did it take you and I to get up to the fact that the root of this is selfish and self-centeredness? I thought the root of my problem was drinking. Turns out there's another game here. So I must turn all things to the Father of light, another synonym, who provides a result. Then he describes the experience, which was beyond me, totally incomprehensible, and I thought maybe made up. These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up, as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. That's why we have the spiritual experience, because most people don't have that experience. So Bill having that experience, what's the first thing that he does. He thinks he's going nuts. For a moment, I was alarmed. No kidding. So I called my friend, the doctor, Silkworth. And I asked him if I were still sane. He listened in wonder as I talked. This is one of the great gifts of Alcoholics Anonymous, this doctor and his humility and his insight, okay? He could have said, oh, you're just having hallucinations. We'll get some Demerol in here and take care of that. Instead, he said, I don't know what's happened to you, but whatever it is, you stick with it because it's better what you had. Okay, fine. All this is great. Then he says, this is an interesting phrase, and it's not just semantics, but think about this. You know the depths of your selfish self-centeredness when you were drinking, especially in the last days and in your early sobriety. Then he says this, when I lay in the hospital, the thought came. He doesn't say, I came up with the idea. He said, the thought came. Where did it come from? The thought came, there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what's been so freely given to me. Perhaps I could help some of them. They, in turn, might work with others. That's the absolute opposite of selfish self-centeredness. That is the evidence of his shift, his change, okay? So I read all that, and I thought impossible. It's baloney. I don't believe it. It's just impossible. So this is what I liked a lot. Page 15. My wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. It was fortunate, for my old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half. I was unemployable, during which time I found little work. Here's what I liked. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment that sometimes nearly drove me back to drink. When I read that, I thought, wonderful, you poser. I knew it wouldn't last. And he didn't understand. I don't understand. The new person doesn't understand. As you have this experience or awakening, whatever your choice is, this shift, you have to participate in keeping it going. You have to participate in recreating that experience on an ongoing basis, day to day. You just have to do it for one day, but that's what it's talking about. Then he stumbles on the great gift that everyone in this room probably has had this experience. But I soon found that when all other measures failed, my prayer, my meditation, my inventory, everything, nothing was working, work with another alcoholic would save the day. Many times, I've gone to my old hospital in despair. On talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. It's a design for living that works in rough going. So, now, you heard Silkworth talk about this in the doctor's opinion. This guy had been in my hospital 3 times, almost dead each time. Then he has this wild power experience. Now he's calling me up saying, hey, doc, how about I come and help some of the patients? Help some of the patients, yeah. That's like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. You were here in the hospital 2 months ago. Now you want to talk to my patients? And he thought about it, and again, the right man, the right time. He thought about it, and what did he say? He said, yeah, there's some people here you can talk to. There's some people here you can talk to. And what he did was he let him go back on his old ward and talk to those guys because they were all hopeless. They had the same diagnosis Bill had. You're hopeless. You're hopeless. You know what that is? That means there's nothing we can do for you. So Bill stumbles on this idea. He goes and talks to this guy. He doesn't say the guy asked to talk to someone. He didn't say the guy asked for help. He showed up and said, hey, I'm Bill. I want to talk to you about my drinking, right? Not your drinking, my drinking. And he stumbles on this thing, which is self-forgetting. I sit with you, and because you're the most important person in this conversation, I forget about me. Self falls away, and I enter into this timeless conversation, right? And the reason I'm amazingly lifted up and put back in the right direction is because I've gotten back in touch with the truth, and I've gotten back into the present moment. And for 2 hours I've been talking to you. I leave, I feel great. He doesn't say how the other guy feels. He does not say how the other guy feels. He just says how he feels. So now, stumbled into something really important for Bill's story. Whatever experience I have, I need to keep it going. I need to maintain growth. I don't have to become frickin' Gandhi or Mother Teresa. I just have to get better. I just have to find something, 10 and 11. I need to find something I can look at the day and say, I did that better. And I might also have 2 things that I might need to work on. I need to do more of that later, right? So now we go back to the spiritual experience appendix, and everything you need to know about AA is in these 2 pages. Everything. So it ends with few exceptions. Our members find they've tapped an unsuspected inner resource, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. I couldn't identify with the power greater than myself when I was new, because all the examples of power greater than myself that I had been given as a boy were totally unserviceable. And because I had no way to think about it that was constructive or useful or comforting, I abandoned the whole thing. Now I'm 30 years old, getting sober, and they say, you gotta find a higher power. I had some things happen, and I assigned to them phenomenon: the cessation of the drinking, the removal of the obsession, the removal of the temptations in my life, essentially drugs, booze, and women. And then the last one was the removal of the obsession. And I had those experiences, and they were profound and they were mine, but I had nothing to do with them because I couldn't say, thank you, God. I couldn't say, oh, there's evidence. I just said phenomena. Phenomena. They're saying they identify that stuff with their conception of a power greater than ourselves. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence, the nut of spiritual experience. Just the awareness. Oh, something's happened to me. I'm changing. I'm lying less. I'm showing up when I'm supposed to show up more regularly. I'm on time about half the time now. That's better than never. I'm looking for shifts. I'm looking for change. That's the essence of it. That doesn't mean that's the whole thing. It means you've got a seed planted, excuse me, and now you have to water it and nurture it. So, our more religious members call it God consciousness. But what is happening is our consciousness is evolving. Old ideas are beginning to fall away. New ideas are replacing them. When you let go of something, you have to have something to hold on to. You know, you remember the monkey bars in the playground? As you swing from one to the other, you have to let go of the one you were just holding on to go forward. It's the same thing with this. You got to let go of your old ideas, even if it's one at a time, to go forward, to make progress. And that's what we're talking about, progress. So here it comes. This is so profound. Most emphatically, we, the people who wrote the book, wish to say any alcoholic capable of honestly facing their problems in the light of our experience can recover. That's a wholesale promise. You think you've got circumstances in your life that make it impossible for you to get well. It's not true. It's not true. It's only true if you believe it's true. And so there's an idea I've got to set aside. Maybe there's a possibility that this could work for me. Maybe there's a possibility that there's a solution for me too. If you can do what we did the way we did it, that's what it's saying. You can have this. If I can do the steps the way they did the steps, if I can engage in that process of consciousness and conversion, including revelation and honesty and some redemption, I can have this. Then they say, really important, provided you don't close your mind to all spiritual concepts. I get people all pissed at me about this because there's always people in the meetings that say, I'm atheist and I'm staying sober. Fine. That's not what this says. It says I can't close my mind to all spiritual concepts, which means to me, in reading this, I have to find something of a higher nature I'm willing to grow towards. I might not call it God. I might just do the principle. You're willing to grow towards peace? I could do that. You're willing to quit hurting people? I could try to do that. You know, are you willing to lie less? Are you willing to grow towards honesty? You know, if you don't have a concept of a higher power that works, find a principle that you're willing to grow towards. Okay, got it. So the only thing, I got the closed mind problem. Now here's the next thing. The only thing that can defeat me is an attitude, that's my approach again, of intolerance or belligerent denial. The closed mind, the argumentation. That's the only thing that can defeat me. That's why it doesn't matter if you're in the penthouse or you're in the Salvation Army or you're living under the bridge, or you got a lot of money, you got no money, you're sick, you're healthy. It doesn't matter. None of that is contingent upon you and I getting well. What's contingent upon you and I getting well is our attitude, 100%. It's all here. My alcoholism is all here, and the solution is all here. Okay. So that's the only thing to defeat me. So you can't, whether I get divorced or not, whether I get him or her back, whether I get the job, whether I'm making as much money as I used to, whether I have a new car, all bullshit. Totally irrelevant. Then they say we find no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. Now there's 3 things you could grow towards. Any one of those are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. And that was a point at which I would shut the book in disgust. Because when I read it, I don't know if you had this experience that you read stuff that isn't there. It's kind of a gift, you know. It's like mind reading. So I read that as 100% willing, 100% honest, and 100% open-minded. Obviously, that was an error. Because I was getting results, and I wasn't 100% of any of those things. But those qualities, willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are there for you and I even to arrive at the point. I'm powerless and my life's unmanageable. There's a new level of open-mindedness. There's a new level of willingness. There's a new level of honesty. Now, that doesn't mean anything's going to change dramatically. It's going to have to be acted on, but that's the beginning of the process, isn't it? And that opens me just enough to start considering the concept in the second step. Came to believe. That's past tense. What? That there is a power and it could restore me to something useful. Sanity. It doesn't say I have to believe in anything. What it says is I have to be willing to believe in the possibility. That's my experience. The minimum requirement, I'm willing to believe in the possibility. I'm not saying there is, and I'm not naming it. That's all it takes. And then when I make a decision in the third step to move forward, I'm making a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of whatever that power is that seems to be operating in my life. I'm on the road. I'm going. I'm moving. But you have to keep moving. You have to keep moving through the process. The speed at which you move is not nearly as important as the honesty you have while you're moving through it. But it's okay if you're like me and you're not very honest, because it'll catch you later in the other steps. It's perfect. The design is perfect. If you're shame-based, you know the problem. The problem is you look at all that and you need to do it perfectly. I want to do this right. I want to do this right. I'm going to do the best damn 4-step anyone's ever seen. I got it all laid out in this spreadsheet. It's beautiful, right? Cross-referenced, all colors and everything. That's not what it's talking about. You can only do this from the consciousness you have. You can only do this from where you are. And if we had time to hear everyone's story about their experience with 1, 2, and 3, we would find out that everyone had a different experience, but we all ended up at the same point. Interesting to me. So, willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are present. It says they're essential, indispensable. You know what else is essential and indispensable? Oxygen, food, sleep, going potty. All those things are essential. So these ideas, these principles are like breathing. I have to make friends with these ideas. If I'm going to survive, if I'm going to thrive, I have to make friends with willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. You know this from your experience. I know it from mine. The organizing principle of addiction is dishonesty. I was lying 10 years before I ever took a drink. Dishonesty was how I got through the day as a boy, as an adolescent, as a teen, as an adult. I lied my way through it. Shame. You know why I lie? Because I think the lie makes me look better than the truth. And I really don't care if you know I'm lying or not. It's just a story I'm telling myself. And I cannot see that it's not working. The story's not working. So then they close with Herbert Spencer. There's a principle. A principle is an idea you can build other ideas upon. Honesty is a principle, so is dishonesty. You can build other ideas on dishonesty, right? So it's a principle, which is a bar against all information, which locks my mind shut and my heart, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man or woman, a person, in everlasting ignorance. The principle is contempt prior to investigation. Contempt prior to investigation. I've already judged this thing. I've already prejudged the whole deal. That's called prejudice. I've already prejudiced myself, and I haven't even had the experience. It's easy to say this won't work if you don't do it, because then you have proof. You're a prophet. It doesn't work. I sat in AA for over a year, pardon me, with a one-step program, and I sat there to myself saying, well, I've been to AA, this doesn't work. I've been to meetings. The recovery program has 12 steps to it. I was doing one of them, and not too well, with under duress and with a lot of pressure. But we start where we are, because you can't start anywhere else. When you find your beautiful sponsor who's got 8,000 years sobriety, and you think he or she is walking on water, you can't be where they are. You can only be where you are. And if you're waiting, here's an example. I'm waiting to get ready to do this. If you're waiting to get ready to do this, you'll never, ever do it. Because there is no ready. You're as ready as you're going to be. You're as honest as you can be right now in this moment. So what am I doing to advance my recovery? What I'm calling my recovery. Where's the evidence of the progress? That's how I know. Not by you telling me. I know it by my experience. Just like I knew I was screwed by my experience the last night I drank. I'm done, I'm toast, I can't do this. What do we say? We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives are unmanageable. That's not an upper. That's like the ultimate failure. That's the door we walk through that looks like the ultimate failure, that is the door to the ultimate success. And so we all have different areas that we're resistant to. We all have different areas that we're not good with. For me, the God thing and honesty, two big problems. For other people, I can't stay sober, right? Someone else, it's inventory. It's someone else, it's something else. It doesn't matter. You're going to run into what you resist. Pay attention. Because when we're talking about these things, and when you're going through your day and you feel yourself pushing back, that's where the gift is. That's where the lesson is. That's where the gold is. It's in that, what you firsthand perceive as a problem, in that is a solution. In that is a transformative idea that turns something that I think is a negative into a positive. It's spiritual alchemy, if you will. These are not problems. They turn into opportunities, and the opportunities turn into gifts when I decode them and see what they're trying to teach me, instead of push them away and run away thinking, I don't want to know this, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to do this. Then you're going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are screwed, ultimately and completely, until you're willing to let go of another one of those ideas. That's why it's so useful to have help. Oftentimes we call them a sponsor. Sometimes we call them other names. But that's why it's good to have a guide. When I, years ago, I don't know how many, but a bunch, I went through a spiritual direction program. And they call it companioning, spiritual companioning. And I really like that, because when you look at what you do, when you do a sponsee relationship, when I meet you and I say, I'll walk with you in the 7th chapter, it doesn't say, I'll walk with you till you're 2 years sober. I'll walk with you until you finish the steps, which is bullshit. You never finish the steps, right? I'll walk with you. No, I'll just walk with you. I'll walk with you until you will not walk with me. That's who decides whether the relationship ends or not. My job, my task, my charge, my duty is to walk with you. And there's no time limit on it, right? And share my experience with you. And some of these, in the beginning, you're leading. You're in front going, it's over here, it's over here, it's over here. Later on, it's different. We start sharing what we're doing, what we're reading. And then there's other times when it becomes more of a peer relationship. We're now, instead of discussing what we think are the problems of the day, we're discussing the gifts. We're discussing where the hand of God moves through our day. Give me an example of your last aha. Give me an example of where you saw God today, right? Those questions. And then every once in a while, I got to say, you know what? I got to put on my sponsor hat. Can you handle that? Put on your sponsee hat. We need to have a chat, right? This is what I'm seeing. That kind of thing. That's the beauty of it. So I walk with you. Francis had a great thing. I love this. This is what Francis said to his monks in 1280. Before you speak of peace, you must first have it in your heart. Before you talk about recovery, you better be living, right? We have been called to heal wounds, to unite what's fallen apart, and to bring home any who've lost their way. That's what sponsorship is. But I'm not the power. I'm not the healing. The healing is coming through me, through words and direction, right? I'm not the healer. I'm the vehicle. But that's the relationship. It describes beautifully, doesn't it? Guys get well, they get sober, all of a sudden families are reunited, things are, or families aren't reunited, but life goes on, and we find a way to deal with life on its terms. Because I have no control. It's like sitting, looking out the window. It's oftentimes I use the metaphor of a movie. I'm just watching the movie. I'm just watching the movie. Things are coming, things are going, things are happening. I don't know what they mean. Hell, I've never known, neither of you. We know what they look like. We know what they appear to be. So back to this idea, what I'm looking for here with these steps is a shift in my perception and my personality. How I respond, not react, how I respond to life. Am I making progress? Where am I stuck? Where do I need help? Am I willing to get the help? That sort of thing. So I think that's enough from me now.